Hello there, Commonwealth from here. The Legend of Zelda has for over 40 years now been the dungeon crawler, to the point that it is no exaggeration to say that these giant combat and puzzle spaces are the soul of the franchise. However, since going open air in 2017, that hasn't really been the case anymore, which, truth to be told, is a bigger issue to address than delivering a brand new map to explore. Well, somewhat. Hence this video, as the right balance of old and new is exactly what the next Zelda game needs. Now then, the best old thing to bring back is the traditional dungeon ambition, so be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press notifications, and let's dive straight into it. Let's remember that nearly each 3D Zelda installment aimed to top the prior one when it came to dungeons. The results were spectacular, creating true icons that have stood the test of time, long after they got their 3D or HD versions. It is just that right now in the second half of the 2020s, we are facing a great uncertainty. Is the Zelda team going all in on bringing back dungeons that will aim to be number one again, or are we in for another situation where the best temple isn't even the best of its own kind?
This is a question that needs to be brought up, as it is, in my opinion, one of the three Triforce pieces with gameplay and a new map that can make the next Zelda the best one yet by far. Without the right dungeons, Zelda is simply not complete, and that is the reality we are currently facing. The two open-air Zelda games often have a better build-up to the temples than the actual temples, which is something that would never fly in the Nintendo 64 or Wii era. Terminals are simply not as engaging, as it is an activity that feels like we are charging a battery to reach the boss, not going chamber to chamber to eventually reach that chest hiding the boss key. This isn't even about having a dungeon item. It comes down to the suspense and more so presentation that made the path towards the boss so special. Simply put, without the solution, the experience simply feels incomplete. Since what we tackled in Tears of the Kingdom are dungeons on paper and name, but in reality, they are pumped up divine beasts. Yes, even the solid lightning temple suffers from this syndrome that has to leave on the Nintendo Switch 2. So how do we get dungeons back to the pre-2011 top form? Keep that silver, give me that gold. Let's remember, we are playing as the hero. Nothing but the best should be satisfying enough. We shouldn't settle for second or third place and let the past rather than the present be golden when it comes to Zelda temples. Yes, the interiors may look more unique than in Breath, where they were all the same, but the issue at hand is that temples still don't feel organic enough.
In other words, temples should not just share the same Sheikah or Zonai template. Instead, they should be the pride and unique staple of that region's local race and inhabitants. This exact reason is why I prefer the ancient waterworks over the water temple, as it, apart from the Zonai lamps, oozes with atmosphere and the lore of not the Zonai, but the distant past Zora. Since what we saw in the temples and the path to these in Tears is that what is in front of you is in core Zonai, but is Rito, Goron, Zora, or Gerudo themed. Unique identity, that is the right word. But why can we not get proper temples of the Zora, Gorons, Rito, Koroks, Gerudo, and so on, without the entire master tribe aesthetic dominating it all? Where the culture and lore of the tribe comes forth, and there are stories inscribed all over the place. You know, just as we see in their key settlements. Does it take away parts of the story? Apart from the Wind Temple, not really, as that one was the largest divine beast anyway, and did its job well as a transition point from Breath to Tears. And in truth, it makes the tribes feel more competent and independent, instead of the something insulting, ancient aliens mentality of, it must have been aliens. I'm sorry, I mean the Zonai. Since that is what it feels when playing Tears.
So here's what we suggest, to create something that can serve as a solid bridge and make all of us happy. The starting dungeon could be a hybrid, but here's the key. The only such temple in the game. A relic of a master race, but where everything else is the regional pride of each tribe. For the clearly Japanese-inspired Sheikah, this could be a castle keep that has been taken over by evil and where we have to battle monsters in samurai armor. That feel, look, and smell of traditional woodcraft cannot be replaced by any stone Zonai structure. And that is only one example closest to home for the Zelda team in Kyoto. We want to see the brilliance of each civilization. The Legend of Zelda is a franchise of diversity, and the same applies for the dungeons, something that was a staple for the series in Ocarina, Majora, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword, where every temple told a story about the tribe in question through both its exterior and interior architecture and design.
And none of them are more evident than the overall lack of a forest temple, where we had the epic jungle and rainforest of Faron right there. A place which never really got to shine from 2017 to 2023 when it came to be an actual dungeon. Well, a proper forest temple could shine on Switch 2, demonstrating the complex and dense foliage only possible on new hardware. Visuals aside, previous forest temples had fetch quests that were actually fun, such as the pose in Ocarina of Time and monkeys in Twilight Princess. Getting these personified keys required going through their own unique challenges that would sometimes lead to mini-bosses, well, most of the time, all of which are missing in the open-air dungeons. Some dungeons even had iconic moments of their own, such as the ancient cistern being based on the short story The Spider's Thread, which is apparent when you see Link climb out of hell via a rope that looks an awful lot like a spider's thread. It's not literally hell, but you get what I mean. Every dungeon in the older Zelda games told a story, and they were just as important to the game's world as much as the outdoor sections. The only dungeons to really provide this in the open-air games were Hyrule Castle and Tyr's Spirit Temple, which admittedly, if not split up the way it was, could have been a really great dungeon before the final battle with Ganondorf. The dungeons in open-air Zelda took a major backseat in favor of the world of Hyrule, which just doesn't feel right for this series. They are shorter, less complex, and visually less interesting than Zelda dungeons of old. And we can't stress enough how badly this needs to change, because it's already affecting how newer players perceive this series. Some of you watching might think we are overreacting because dungeons aren't that important for Zelda. And respectfully, we can't stress enough how wrong this statement is.
Dungeons were a huge reason to play these games back in the day. They were large puzzles that told stories of their own, not tiny sandboxes with 5 switches like they are now. To see them diluted to that is frankly insulting to longtime fans of the series, and they need to go back to the drawing board on them for the next Zelda game. Because as we stated earlier, Zreo is a developer that actually respects proper Zelda dungeons, as demonstrated by their last game, Echoes of Wisdom. Even though it had the makings of an open-air game from a 2D top-down perspective, it still honored the series' traditional linear roots. Although some dungeons could be tackled in a different order, completing them requires puzzles to be done in a specific sequence. Something like this has to be replicated in the next Zelda game. No more being able to go anywhere you want in the dungeon from the beginning. It's time to bring some linearity back to Zelda for the good of its puzzles. This may sound impossible given how these games insist upon being open-ended, but this does not apply to the shrines. Most of these mini-dungeons have a definitive beginning and end, and the only thing players can choose is how to solve their puzzles. Some might just break the game's physics for an immersive jettison to the end, or they'll just solve a puzzle the right way, so to speak. This philosophy perfectly marries the open-ended new games with the linear old ones, and it's something that should carry over into the dungeons.
While we are on that subject, should shrines return in the next Zelda? Possibly, but with some changes. For one, we don't need over 150 shrines, and shrine quests spread throughout the map. That is just excessive, because it's really about the quality, not the quantity. Regardless, the price of completing all shrines has to be more rewarding than an armor set that is difficult to upgrade. Instead, how about making the Master Sword unbreakable, assuming weapon durability comes back in the next Zelda? But back to the dungeons one last time, as their importance in the Zelda series cannot be overstated. And it's something that developers at Nintendo clearly still care about. Otherwise, they just wouldn't bother in the new games at all. And we still got the Lightning Temple. They even reminded new Zelda fans of them by releasing Link's Awakening and Skyward Sword, while also including new classic dungeons in Echoes of Wisdom. So it's not like they want these gameplay features completely gone. But then again, Echoes was made by Zreo. But when it comes to the Nintendo Zelda team in Kyoto, the developers have definitely backed themselves into a corner when designing these dungeons in games that were meant to be all about player freedom, and they have sadly lost a lot of what made them so unique. Their visual identities, their story moments, and their focused level design, plus of course, boss keys. While the new open-air dungeons have impressive qualities of their own, such as the transformative divine beasts, they feel more like afterthoughts than deliberately designed puzzle zones. And truth to be told, even mini-dungeons could do a lot of what these do on their own. So this should be an addition to the real dungeons, not their replacement.
Believe it or not, it's possible to have great linear dungeons in great open-air Zelda games, and even if they have to have a set beginning and end, there is still room for players to experiment with their own solutions, as demonstrated by the hundreds of shrines in both games. There is a lot the Zelda team can do with the dungeons of their next game, and we hope they take notes from their past games as well as ones they collaborated with their friends at Zreo to make. But before we conclude this video, we'd like to hear from you. Do you like the new open-air dungeons, or do you want to see the next Zelda game go for more linear ones? Let us know in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching until the very end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and press that notification bell for more Zelda videos and theories. We'd also like to thank our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to royal producer Jonathan and heroes Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Kintaro. You all rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.